Hi, sisters and brothers. I'm here for, it may be a quick video because I don't know when I'm going to be interrupted. So this was a connection to Mount Sinai. It was going to move us into Psalm 68, okay? And I do have a lot of fascinating information on that because the more you look at things, the more it begins to really form well in your mind. And I'm sure you know this. So we were looking at Mount Sinai and how that word actually took us to the word desolate. And it's very important that we get a handle on who became desolate, and it is the righteous spirit in the land, the Holy Spirit. She was identified, and that was her, she, the woman, who was falsely accused by the accuser, man, fallen Adam. And we do have a verse, he was a rebel from the beginning. I do have that verse up somewhere. But what we found about Mount Sinai, furthermore, okay, when we really get looking into it, we know that when we pull it up, when we pull the actual word Sinai, Mount Sinai up, okay, so forgive me for this. But let's get at least this much out. When we pull that word Mount Sinai, I just X'd it. Okay, but when we pull it up, if you pull the word Mount Sinai up, and I do not have the number wrote down here in my words, so I'm just going to talk here for a while. It takes us to the word sin. Yes. When you pull that word Sinai up, it's going to say from sin, right? And to pull that up. What we know about that word sin is it takes us straight back to Sennacherib's name. So Sennacherib, we link to the pointing cherub. What we did, for those who haven't hit the videos where we actually did this with Sennacherib's name, so I'll do it right quick. And I'm not a very good writer, so. And I hope you can see this, but we broke his name down in this way. So can you see that? And we know Senna meant Sina or Senna, Sennacherib. And we see cherub here. We already know what that means, like an angel, right? And Senna meant what? A blackberry bush, a thorny bush. So we've actually, in a very roundabout way, identified what they often will describe Satan as, which is also fallen Adam, the first man, a rebel from the beginning, the accuser. But often they'll describe him as the pointy cherub or the pointing cherub, right? Another way of saying the accusing cherub, who blasphemed her holy name. Okay, so now that we know that, when you go in, you pull up Mount Sinai or the name word Sinai, it'll say from sin, S-I-N. When you go in and you pull Sennacherib up on Wikipedia, it's going to say the meaning of his name means sin has replaced the brothers. When you pull sin up, it's going to have the word clay in it, as in reshaping, the idea of reshaping. What do we know about the location of sin? Well, we know that it's a location found in Egypt. What does it say about the Assyrians, who Sennacherib was an Assyrian, who was coming against the Lord that sat between the cherubims in, I'll get it, 2 Kings 19. And she says, the children have come to the birth, but there is not strength to deliver. And he says, I've gone up to your high place, he says to this Lord, who he was blaspheming her holy name. That was the daughter of Zion, who sat between the cherubim, who has shaken her head at Sennacherib, who had gone up and cut her house down out of the land. And the women inside the temple that you find in Psalm 74, and they were as axemen welding axes in a forest. And the women were looking at one another and saying, we know not how long this devastation is going to last. And they were talking about the defiling of really their own bodies is what they were talking about, the tearing down and the defiling of them. So what we know about the name sin, which is in part the meaning of Sennacherib's name, is that it's all becomes a location in Egypt, right? So what do we know about what happened when supposedly the Lord's people goes down into Egypt? Well, it says this in Isaiah 52:4. My people aforetime went down into Egypt, and there the Assyrian oppressed them. So who was the Assyrian after to oppress? He was after the women to oppress them. And he knew he had to take control of the men inside the nation of Israel. and teach them his lie, worship of Baal, which we actually saw those serpents from the surrounding Adamic nations sent in by Balaam and Balak, meaning of Baal. You get it? Husband, bridegroom, lord, and master. He says, go get your women, send them in, seduce the men. We'll take the right hand, the daughters of Zion, out that way. The wise women. They can teach the next generation of daughters. He was after the next generation of daughters. Esther proves that. Because Mordecai's name means follower of Marduk. Marduk is simply another name for Baal, the solar calf deity. And that's where the contamination of the woman's seed came in. So Psalm 106:29, it says, thus they provoked her to anger. It says him, but it was her they were after. With their inventions. That takes us to Jeremiah 23. With the wicked imaginations, look the word up, it means inventions of their mind. That God was he, and they began to prophesy through Baal and the he pronoun. Oh, yeah. So it says, thus they provoked her to anger with their inventions, and the plague broke in upon them. So what was the plague that broke in upon them? So we know that in Isaiah 52:4, my people aforetime went down into Egypt, and there the Assyrian oppressed them. Sin, he was in Egypt, right? The plague that broke in upon them was Baal worship, idol worship of man as Lord and God, which also ends up being took out to the four corners of the world. We're still fulfilling prophecy. But the real prophecy that's being fulfilled, that your eyes has been taught not to see. That's why there's so few that will see it, right? Because it is only for the wise-minded and the strong of heart that is willing to see this truth. So, now, what do we know? All right, this is where it gets really interesting because it tells us outright what the contamination was. Once we understand Sennacherib was all part of it, we also know that Jacob wrestled with the presence of the Lord, identified as the daughter of Zion herself, and her little flock of she-goats, as they're identified with the Shulamite as well. So we're getting lots and lots of allegories to tell us really what's going on. So it's kind of a test to the wise women. You know, when are you going to wake up? When are you going to actually look into these words for yourself? And that'll happen when she chooses to place her spirit upon us, when we turn back to her in hopefully with a contrived spirit, a contrite spirit, wanting to know, as I did in the very beginning, why did you even bother if we're just a doormat? And we are a doormat according to Isaiah 52. I got the verse pulled up here. Just give me a second. See, I'm getting a little off track here. So I have to go so that don't exit. Oh my gosh. I'm not even Xing it. There's no X anywhere. I'm touching under it and it's just removing it. Oh my gosh. And I didn't bring my Bible in. Yeah. There it is. But I will put it into the hands of them that afflict thee, which have said to thee, bow down, that we may go over, and thou hast laid thy body as a ground and as a street to them that went over. So the women end up laying their bodies flat after they tear her high place down, the tabernacle above, which you see the men as axemen welding axes in a force going in Psalm 74. Right? And the women say, none of us knows how long this will last, which takes us really to the book of Daniel, where one angel says to another, how long will the defiling of our tabernacle, that's what they're really saying, how long will this be allowed to take place? And then it says 2,300 days, right? And so it's about the defiling of the woman's tabernacle. And when they finally rise up, we get in Isaiah 14, where it's talking about he who exalted himself to a throne, the rebel. He was a rebel from the beginning. He could not take the law off of her tongue. So he chose to accuse her in the courts of heaven. So we get the meaning of his name. Yeah, write it down. I'm sorry, I didn't, did I? It's funny, I didn't write it down. Because I thought I had. I was just looking at it. Yeah. Yeah. I pulled it up. Yeah. 1228. So he was slanderous. This is diablos, right? We hear him say this in the Latinos say this a lot. Diablos, a name for the devil. used often as a noun, is slanderous with the article the slanderer, same as Sennacherib, that pointing cherub. So he was a slanderer par excellence, the devil. Well, we call him Satan or the devil, don't we? So down we go. What does it say? What does it say? It takes us to the word defame. 1228 from 1225, to slander, accuse, and defame. So that takes us to Zephaniah chapter 3, where the women are being defamed and debased. And she says, I will get thee fame and glory in every land where you have been put to shame. Because they wore this accusation like a burden. And the burden is actually translated to be the deliverance of the children under the truth of who God is. And not even who, so much as the law that you transgressed, which was to come from her tongue, not man's tongue. So he properly, a slanderer of false, this is important, he falsely accuses, unjustly criticizes, to hurt and to malign and to condemn, to sever a relationship. Okay, so who then do we see who is exalted in his heart? The harlot. Why is that important? Because it's the harlot that bows to this religious lie and idol of man, husband, Baal, bridegroom, as your Lord and Master, which is what sin was trying to do. He was trying to put this in play. He was reshaping. Sin has reshaped, replaced the brothers. So in their heart, they were exalting the women that would actually bow to this lie. So we get Baal married to Baal. And we get that they have become as perverted as the thing that they worship in other verses. But Baal is married to Baal in Isaiah 54:1. We've looked at it. Yet more are the children of the desolate spirit than of she who has a husband. And that's what that is all telling us. They always want to go, it's male and male. Or male, male, male. It's male and female. And he accused her from the beginning. And she says, if my accuser, and she says this in the book of Job, had written his accusations in a book, I would wear it like a crown on my head, and I would use it in the end to exonerate myself, which is exactly what she does. So diablos is the root of the English word devil. Its secular Greek means a backbiter, an accuser, a calumniator, slanderer. Is literally someone who casts through, that looks like piercing, making charges that brings down, to destroy. Satan is used by God in this plan as a predictable wind-up toy, playing out his evil nature, and that's man. That's why we get the beast system, which we see the number 666 was created. We've done this many times. That links us back to King Solomon, who was what? This is how we identified the key of David. He changes. It's no mistake that it's the key of Solomon. The key of Solomon, he used covenants with harlot spirit from the surrounding Adamic nation. And how many wives did he have? He had 700 wives, 300 concubines, or 200. I can't remember the number here. And the point of these was to overflow her wave upon wave. And she says that in Job 31. She says, they come upon me wave upon wave upon wave. She's talking about a gateway, that the men were standing at the gateway and attacking these daughters, righteous daughters, who were identified by these robes of glory that they wore over the garment as they passed through the gate in Micah 2. And these men were as men at war. And they were ripping their glory away, and they were removing from their own houses their own birthright. We also saw Jacob wrestling her for her name, and he stole her name and her birthright. And what she does is she hamstrings him, which then becomes a symbol of him being her enemy and a way to identify him in the future. So when they say a star shall rise out of Jacob, no, it's out of Israel, which is the reborn daughters out of the dust of the earth that you find in Isaiah 29. I hear a familiar speaker. I hear a familiar voice as of one who speaketh out of the dust of the earth. Isaiah 29:4. That's a rebirth of these daughters, and they're holding their name Israel. It was never his name. It is the woman's seed for a reason. It's identifying what they did to the women inside the nation. So what was the contamination? Now, here's what we need to understand. Okay, so I'm just throwing out details whenever it hits me to do it. So it'll probably be on you to be able to line them up. This is what we need to understand. So from Mount Sinai in Saudi Arabia, holy site. Now, I remember seeing, it was just a quick flash in a video, and I kind of maintained it was this wire gate, right? And in behind it was the territory of Saudi Arabia, was said to be this Mount Sinai. And it was just this kind of heap of rocks. And I think it had a plaque on it or something like that. But I don't know for certain. But this is what I got back when I asked various questions. So I was fascinated by the Midianitish woman. Now let me see, can I find this before we move into this? Right quick. Or was it one I actually X'd? Okay, it should be back here. Let me see if I can find it. There it is. Because I had so much information. Okay, so this is what it says in the information I got. It says, for many years, it was believed that the site of Mount Sinai has been in the Sinai Peninsula at the place called St. Catherine's Monastery. However, many recent archaeologists and scholars now believe the Israelites crossed the Red Sea at the Aqaba. I don't know, it doesn't say Aqaba, it's Aqaba, finger of the Red Sea, and that Mount Sinai, and if you study your Bible, you'll know it. Mount Sinai is in Midian, and it is. This was where the contamination took hold, which is part of modern-day Saudi Arabia. Now, I thought Saudi Arabia's old biblical name was Moab, but they keep telling us Jordan is a biblical name. Moab, right? Which still lines up, because then we get the one that they can't pierce her nose through, which is she, not he. They can't take her in a snare, in a lie. That's in the book of Job. And she trusted that she can drink up the river Jordan. It's interesting that we got the dragon reborn in this television series, The Wheel of Time, and his name is, the guy who wrote it is Robert, Jordan. Now, they'll want you to believe that the dragon reborn is indeed male. It is not. It is female. She has double his power. I believe when Moses welded the scepter, it was her telling him to. And he's an XY. He's got half her power. She has XX. She's the spiritual power, and she doubles him in the spirit. And so they tried to place all of that on a male. From what I know of allegory and everything Robert Jordan wrote, he knew, he had broke a lot of it down. Now, whether he was in these families of no, I don't know. But he certainly seemed to know something, the way it's written. And his name being Jordan, Dragon Reborn, and all this. And we have discussed it. And we may discuss it in the future if I can ever get the time. I'm lucky I've got a little bit of time before I'm going to be interrupted. I thought I was going to have my afternoon to myself. Turns out I'm not. So that's why this is just being kind of a quick talk through as opposed to showing you the information. Hopefully you go in and find it for yourself. But Mount Sinai, it says, however, many recent archaeologists and scholars now believe the Israelites crossed the Red Sea at the Aqaba finger of the Red Sea, and that Mount Sinai is in Midian. This is important detail, which is part of modern-day Saudi Arabia. So what was the plague that broke in upon them, right? This is important. So we're talking about Mount Sinai. We're talking about sin that reshaped the brothers that came from Mount Sinai. Sennacherib's name means sin has replaced the brethren. They went down into Egypt. There the Assyrian oppressed them, and he followed them out. As she was parting the doctrine, that's your admixture of the Red Sea, the lie. Your wine in the cup. That then your priests are found getting drunk upon. In Isaiah 28, they actually get drunk on their own power, their own religious lie. And they spew vomit across the tables. But when you look the word up for vomit, it's human excrement. It's leading you back to the Lord of Dung, which is Baal, another name for your husband, which is what they get contaminated with, the Israelites in the wandering, and they end up taking it right into their own land. She does not stop it. She says, if I stop you from taking the land, the enemy will think that they have won. While in their land, they feed this religious lie of Baal in multiple ways, whether it's a singular male called father or whether it's multiple. They feed it out to the four corners of the world, and it becomes the global contamination because they took it into the land of Israel. Now, watch what it says of the Midianitish woman. This is the contamination. It says, and behold, one of the children of Israel came and brought unto his brethren a Midianitish woman. Where would that be? Well, we were just told that Mount Sinai. However, many recent archaeologists and scholars now believe the Israelites crossed the Red Sea at the Aqaba finger of the Red Sea, and that Mount Sinai is Midian, in Midian, which is part of modern-day Saudi Arabia. That is where they crossed because this validates it. All right? I was going to say something else here. And there the Assyrian oppressed them. She says, when I parted the waters come back over and covered my pathways, so you did not see them. Whose pathways? Her, your mother, daughter Zion. Isaiah 42, long time have I held my peace, now will I go forth as a travailing woman. I will destroy and devour at once. It's the presence of God parting the admixture of lies identified as the wine in the cup that the men put in there because the first Adam had so much bloody pride. He was a rebel from the beginning. I got the verse right down. Yeah. Where did I find that? I do have it pulled up here. I see I didn't take a whole lot of notes. But okay, we'll read this first and then we'll go to the rebel. All right? I'll put that here. So, and behold, this is Numbers 25. This takes us to Midian and how this is validated that it's actually the spot where they did actually try to pass through. But why the contamination come from Mount Sinai? She becomes a desolate spirit and all this information that we have just shared. They went down into Egypt. There the Assyrian oppressed them. And when they come out, he followed them out. He did. He did so. Yeah, that's the one I got to read after this. So, we'll read Numbers 25, verse 6. And behold, one of the children of Israel came and brought unto his brethren a Midianitish woman. From Midian, in Midian. Mount Sinai is in Midian, which is part of modern-day Saudi Arabia. So, he brought a Midianitish woman in the sight of Moses and in the sight of all the congregation, the women of the children of Israel, who were weeping before the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. And that would have been women. Yeah, identified in places like Proverbs chapter 9. We also get this little virgin girl who's gave to the tabernacle, and that's the reason why. It's the women that went out and declared the law of God. And they were calling to these passerbys, come and follow our way. And yet he chose the harlot spirit, which is why the table is placed with both. Because it's identifying earth and what's happened to us in the contamination. In the sight of the children of Israel, who were weeping before the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. Verse 7. And when Phinehas, good old Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the priest, saw it, he rose up from among the congregation and took a javelin in his hand. Verse 8, and he went in after the man of Israel into the tent and thrust both of them through. The man of Israel and the woman, now pay attention, through her belly. Why? Was she pregnant? So the plague, the contamination, was stayed from the children of Israel. What do we see Balaam telling Baal? Go get your harlots. That's basically what he was saying. He's been taught this religious lie. Baal is man and God. Jeremiah 23. The wicked imaginations of their heart. I am God. Man, he. Father and son, God. Yeah. Screw you, mother and daughter. Oh, glory to Father and Son. She says, my glory, I will not give it to none of your male idols. It goes to my righteous daughters. And Micah too. They were ripping the robes of glory away from them. And so we saw this mark, and that's the other one I wanted to do. We're going to keep reading this. I want to go next there so I don't forget. So we'll identify this mark, 666, again, and that's the mark of the beast system that you all worship down today, and you say that you're the holy ones of God, saints, Christians, that's what they claim, as well as, I guess, these three Abrahamic religions do. And that's all the contaminations that came out. And when Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, okay, so they thrust he thrust not only the man through, but they specify the woman through the belly. And those that died in the plague were 24,000. Now it takes us to this verse, all right, because we know that the plague did in fact break in upon them. So what was it? It was the fact that they were taking these women in covenant. They were rejecting their own women who are identified as wise women. They're identified as the scepter that Moses was instructed to make. It was identifying her as the scepter and the ruler, the way that the nation was to be ruled. He was to exalt that. And we get the Ephraimites tossing their own crown to the ground. These drunkards, they were drunk on their own power, which is the identification of the wine in the cup, and also the admixture of lies that comes over her path. She says, the waters covered my footsteps. You no longer saw my way. Right? That's her. It's identifying she every time. So in Psalm 106:29, what do we get told? Thus they provoked her to anger with their inventions. What was the inventions? Let's pull up Psalm 106. You changed your glory over to that which eats grass. That was the bull calf idol brought in. They were in idol worship. And another name for that idol turns out to be Baal. And Baal turns out to be called your husband. And it's also the Lord of Dung, which is also the draft house that the female descendant indeed does come out of, as identified in Micah 5, verse 2. So here in 106, we identify what broke in upon them as the plague was idol worship, and it was through the women that were identified as the vipers coming in on the ground, poisoning the men with another way, who were willingly rejecting their own scepter, identified as the one wrapped around the pole, which was identifying their own women inside the nation of Israel that they were turning on. The Nahashta, it's a female representation, not male. So let's see where we can find it. It's here. I've read it many times. Right there. At Horeb. What was another name for Horeb? Wasn't another name for Horeb Zion in another tongue? I can't quite remember. I believe it was. They made a calf and worshipped a molten image. They exchanged their glory for the image of a grass-eating ox. What is Jesus? Oh, he's the sacrificial bull. Well, they say lamb, but he's a bullock in the sacrifice, which is the image of your bridegroom, which is the image of Baal that came straight out of Egypt that contaminated the woman's seed, because there the Assyrian oppressed them, and sin reshaped the brothers to what come in here. And the abomination of desolation is so man inside of a man. He's worshiping himself, and he's making her a desolate spirit, because men like Jacob battled her, wrestled her for her house, her birthright, and stole her name, Israel. So then we get this verse in Numbers 24:17. I shall see her, but not now. I shall behold her, because she will be reborn out of the dust of the earth, but not nigh. There shall come a star out of, not Jacob, It was never Jacob. Israel is her name, the woman's seed. Because Jacob supplanted her, the meaning of his name, and overthrew her and stole her name, Israel. And a scepter, that's feminine, scepter, crown, both female, shall rise out of Israel and shall smite the corners of where? Moab. What's another name for Moab? Jordan. What does the not the Leviathan, but what does the behemoth? Trust as she can drink up the river Jordan, the pollutions that Israel got contaminated with. Shall rise out of Israel and shall smite the corners of Moab and destroy all the children of Sheth. So many says when I look into this, it's actually Seth that should be there, not Sheth. And it means fallen Adam, really? And it means all mankind. And she's going to destroy these children of Baal who bought into the lie. So what does it say? They exchanged their glory for the image of a grass-eating ox. They forgot their true Savior. Savior is 3-4. 4-4-4 for your sovereign. Those that gets the victory. Not too proud. Don't got their ears plugged up with the religious lie saying, I have faith. Their eyes blinded. They have fell into the ditch. They have fell into the snare. The behemoth again. Trust us that she can drink up the river Jordan. That's the pollution. That's the pollution, right? So, verse. Let's see if it'll take us there. Job 40. Behold, she drinketh up a river, and hasteth not. She trusteth that she can drop the Jordan into her mouth. That's the pollution. Right? And I just want to go in here to get the... And any... Sure, not him. He's already ensnared it in his own lie. He's got too much pride, right? That's why it is women, for the most part, that will receive the truth and are wise enough to see it for what it is. That is those that have been defamed and debased, but at the end, I will get the praise and fame and glory in every land where you have been put to shame, because they bore this burden upon them, which is going to take us to the study in Psalm 68. Okay, so again, we'll read it here in Job 40. Oh, it scrolled down too far. Can anyone capture her as she looks on, or pierce her nose with a snare? So in one of our videos, we actually did what a nose ring represented. A nose ring, what does a nose ring on a bull or a cow allow you to lead them around by the nose? You're not going to lead her around by the nose, which is, and God says, when I speak, wisdom says, when I speak, you can't be bothered to listen to me. You mock, and you mock by rejecting my truth. You mock me. All I can see is just mock. Every channel, mock. That's what they do. They mock wisdom, and they do so because of their pride and because they have become ensnared in their own religious lie. Because it tickles their ears, it's like honey on their tongue, but it is wormwood in the gut. It will poison you. And it poisoned you with a religious lie that now you say you have faith when you do not. So can anyone capture her as she looks on, or pierce her nose with a snare? No. She trusts us she can drink up the river Jordan. And so we see it's every bit linked to the female. All of it. So when we go back, they changed their glory over to a bull god. And that becomes and Baal, it's Baal. Your golden calf idol, Baal. Marduk goes by many names. And it means your husband or your bridegroom, your master, Lord. Also, Lord of Dung. which is why this becomes so important in our study. Then it says in verse, go over here to get it, 29. They yoked themselves to Baal of Peor and ate sacrifices offered to lifeless gods. You're telling me they still don't do this today in the land of Israel? Yeah, they do. But it's also the reason why the Jesus idol fed out to the four corners of the world, and Allah fed out to the four corners of the world, and Yahweh fed out to the four corners of the world, because they have yoked themselves to Baal. And they ate sacrifices offered to lifeless gods. They do not live. They do not hear, they do not see, and they do not help. So they provoked her, the Lord, to anger with their deeds. And a plague broke out among them. So what was the plague that was stayed? When Phinehas went in and stabbed the woman through the belly. So what plague broke in upon the women inside of the nation of Israel, if it was not those who had been contaminated by sin? Sennacherib. Also another name, Balaam and Balak. They're pretty much all doing the same thing. Every one of them. It's telling you the larger picture, the larger story of what man did. He became a beast, hearkening to his own law system and denying her and treating her like a doormat. Thou hast laid thy body flat, and they have walked upon thee. Oh, but she says, I will put it into the hands of them that have said, bow down, that we may go over, and you have laid your body flat. So, where was I? They yoked themselves to Baal of Peor and ate sacrifices. And the plague broke out among them. And then it says, but Phinehas stood and intervened, and the plague was restrained. Now, they keep saying it was restrained, but it really, really wasn't. Because when you get studying further on, we see this contamination right inside the nation of Israel, and that it became actually a man standing as your Lord and God. This is how clever they become. So, the scepter that rises and the star that rises out of Israel, which was a scepter that was cast out into a land not inhabited as a she-goat. We find this flock of she-goat with the Shulamite. Yeah, they're also known as the daughters of Zion. They also are the new branch took out amongst the nations. And we're told that in Isaiah 49 that they will become the new light. The old light ain't doing what she ought to be doing. No. They're too busy bowing to their male gods and eating sacrifices unto this god, Baal of Peor. They're not the light. They don't carry the light. They were contaminated a long time ago. And they replaced the original scepter in some cases. And then, in part, a bunch of them gets tossed out into the lands of the Gentile, and you get the representation of the she-goat in a land not inhabited, meaning they're not holding her spirit. So then eventually, over time, they are reborn out of the dust of the earth because of the spirit that has chose to place herself upon them. We can look at that in the next video. Concerning what I found, concerning Revelations 12, we actually are getting the one that in prophecy over time was born and caught up to rule with the rod, which was the false Messiah caught up. And then Michael, as she is called, she who is like God, rises up with her children after the earth gives life to her. Right? And all the words there, it tells you what went down and what's going to go down. She rises up and she takes him on, and he gets cast down off of her throne. It says no scabbard is found for his sword, so he goes after the earth, the people of the earth, to put in play his doctrine again. That's how he's going to try to do it, right? But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. But it is all there. So we see what was going on. We absolutely see it here with the peninsula, Mount Sinai. Sin, the meaning of sin takes us straight back to the pointing cherub, We know that the word devil or diablos does so mean an accuser. And there is one here that will tell you it means in the court of law, that the devil slandered her in the court of law, meaning he actually ends up perjuring himself until she is able to present her case. And I was going to go into Isaiah 48, but I'm not going to. If I'd have been able to make it when I was ready to go, I'd have had all this information because it was fresh in my mind. And so Numbers 25 is important because it tells us what the contamination would have been. And that they stayed that contamination at least for a little while, but that contamination did so break in upon them as the idol worship of man as your God. And the proof of that is found in Daniel 2, where you get this idol of a man as your Lord and God, beginning with the Babylonians, which were really your Assyrians, weren't they? And every successive kingdom built upon this male idol. That this is your God. And then they create this threat, I'll heat the furnace 7 times hotter and you'll burn if you don't bow to this idol. So then they create this hell idea that you'll burn in hell if you don't bow down to this male idol, which turns out to be Baal. Now your number 666, okay, that was where we were going to go, your rebel. So what verse was the rebel in? Where was that? Right there. I'll double check myself. Okay, so that's found in Isaiah 48:8, and we're not getting into the Psalm 68 just yet, okay? So we kind of have this quick recap. It's probably not that quick. You have neither heard nor understood from of old, your ears have not been open. The first Adam rejected it. He accuses her. Oh, that my accuser, man, had written it in a book. I would wear it like a crown upon my head, and I would use it to exonerate myself. Okay. So she, of course, leads us to the Koheleth again, which seemed to be an office of a wise woman. So you have neither heard nor understood. From of old your ears have not been open. Well, do I know how treacherous you are? They, like Adam, have dealt treacherously with me there. Where? Mount Sinai. That's where they began to deal highly treacherously with her. They took the lie into the land with him. Then we see kings like King Solomon actually moving to put in play his beast system, what man has become towards God, the Holy Spirit woman. He has become a beast to her, writing a law, telling her she's not even a person under that law. She's only a person because she's part of him. No, they tore her house down, completely down out of the land. That was identified as a house in the forest of Lebanon, where they went up, and up in the upper pool, Beth Horon, there the women would wash the garment in with the fuller soap, keeping your garment clean. That means with the law from God. We also see Sennacherib up there cutting these trees down. Takes us to the axemen, like we say in Psalm 74. Well, do I know how treacherous you are, Adam? You are. You are called a rebel from birth. She says, I knew what you were. But she says, for the sake of my name, I will delay my wrath. For the sake of my praise, wisdom's praise, mother's praise, I will restrain it so that you, my dear daughters, my new scepter, and my sons, reborn sons, reshaped sons with the truth, will not be cut off. So, you see, it's very important we establish who the rebel was. Well, it was he. He was a rebel from the beginning. We saw King Solomon taking multiple wives from the surrounding Adamic nations, and this is how we understood what the key of David was. He changed the key of David over, who were the righteous daughters inside the nation of Israel, from these 10 tribes, and he changes it over to a harlot spirit that will bow to Moloch, Melech himself as king and God. You didn't want God, her. You wanted a king, right? So the only way you get a king truly is if he is crowned with the true righteous scepter which is the key of David, the righteous daughters from Israel, with her law. He wears her crown. She is the crown. She's actually identified as the crown. And the scepter, the sovereign that rules the kingdom. This first so-called king, who was not a king at all, leads us to Ephraim, who cast down his crown into the ground, the drunkards of Ephraim. They denied their glory, which was the righteous daughters of Israel, known as the key of David, that flowed like a living water from Lebanon. They will also spring up like a well of water once again. But she is indeed the sovereign. So what you get marked with in here, 666, this is identifying your covenant as being the one of key of Solomon, which is with the harlot spirit that will bow to a man. So what you get marked in here with is the doctrine of a king, as him being your ruler, God, and king, and that he has the right to write the law. This is your contamination of the woman seed. You're marked with 666. The true scepter, the true branch, is actually marked with something totally different. It's called Emet. The word is Emet, and that identifies you as a mother of truth. Emet, truth. M, mother. They took the E off, put in Met. Met means death in Hebrew. M is mother in Hebrew. M is always associated with water, the living water. It's hers. She's the Aleph that was denied. She's also your end, your Omega. She's your beginning. She's your end. Without mother, you do not live. You will die. Now, you can choose your new beginning. You can choose life or you can choose death. It's entirely up to you. So we're marked with Emet, mothers of truth, right? Emet means truth, M means mother, Met means death. The false doctrine that you currently are exalting, screw you, mother and daughter, is the 666 covenant of the beast system, what man has become under his own law system to her. He tore her upper house down, where he was to actually receive the law of God from. Now, you were not to make an idol, neither male nor female, but you were to follow the way of God, which is why we have been kicked out of the heavens. We are not following the way of God. Isaiah 24 tells us that we have transgressed the eternal covenant. Let's go to Isaiah 24, and then I'll be done. And I should tell you, I'm sorry I didn't get to Psalm 68. We'll pick it up because it will help us pursue more meanings, I think, if I leave it that way. So where was I going? Isaiah 24, and then I'll go. So Isaiah 24, what does it say? That people take these terms literal. And in a sense, in God's eyes, we do lie in this state. Behold, the Lord maketh the earth empty and maketh it waste, and turneth it upside down and scattereth abroad the inhabitants thereof. Now, the interesting thing is when I do the Revelation study, I might do that right now. I don't hear nobody in the house yet. And it shall be as the people, so with the priest as with the serpent. We'll go on. The land shall be utterly emptied and utterly spoiled, for the Lord has spoken this word. The Lord has said, if you do not follow the way of God, the law of God, off of the daughter's tongue, it absolutely leads to complete annihilation. The earth mourneth and fadeth away. The world languishes and fadeth away. The haughty people of the earth do languish. The earth also is defiled under the inhabitants thereof, because they have transgressed the laws. Because they have transgressed the laws. You changed the ordinance and you broke the everlasting covenant. That's why we live in a beast system, with man saying, he's an absolute beast to her. He does not recognize her as a sovereign in any way, as the right one to write or keep the law of God upon her tongue. All right, he turned from that and he accused her. So, but we get here why earth becomes so defiled, right? because you're following fallen Adam, Satan, the accuser's law system, which creates a beast system towards the other half woman, which is the true key of David, and the scepter and the crown. Yeah, she's all of these things. They tend to want to allegorize her in this way. The scepter, the crown. She's also identified as the jackass that was holding up Balaam. And she actually tries to save his life from the presence of God, who was preparing to strike Balaam dead. Right? So the jackass pins his leg, and the jackass is she because she speaks. And he strikes her, he smotes her, because that's what man knows as a beast. And he strikes her, and she speaks. She says, I have been nothing but faithful to you. Why are you smiting me? And then the angel speaks up on her behalf, these jackass women's behalf. The presence of God is speaking up. She's wise. The presence of God is wise. And she speaks up. And she says, why are you striking your jackass? She's the one that's currently trying to save you from me striking you with the sword. Get it? All allegory. Yep. So they allegorize the woman in so many passages that you lose absolute sight of her, which was their intentions. The little book of truth is sealed up. It's a little book. But it's also her title deed to the earth as the presence of God that was denied, as the key of David, as the sovereign, where you were to receive the law of heaven from. So, I was going to go to Revelation. Now, the interesting thing in Revelation here, is that it? Right there. So in Revelation 12:17, if you start running out these words, you're going to find her just who's in view. Again, she is absolutely in view. So I was reading through this whole passage, again, Revelation 12, and I began to realize that there is so much of an overlay. I can't remember now. Nourished. I think that was the word I wanted. Yeah. So if we go, let's go down here. So yeah, see, this is all adding up to what's already took place. And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her head and crowned 12 stars. And she being with child cried, travailing in birth, and pain to be delivered. Now I had said originally it's the female being born, and it is in a spiritual overlay. But if we look at it, what took place on our planet, she delivers a male child. She does the first time around. I don't know that she actually delivers it. Well, yeah, the earth does, because the earth is what turns. Okay, that's what we're getting to. So she delivers up, actually, the abomination of desolation, a man inside of a man. And what does it say? There appeared a wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, and da-da-da. And that was the identification of this child that gets delivered. This is identifying his kingdom that he shapes. And his tail then drew the third part of the stars of heaven and did cast them to the earth. So he casts these daughters who won't support him like a harlot. He actually casts them to the earth, which ends up being a third of these stars, which is the glory of Israel cast down in places like Lamentations 2. And then he uses her for his footstool. She's a doormat. She has laid her body flat, and you have went over it, yet mother is still to deal with. And we also see the stars that get stamped upon when the harlot spirit gets exalted to the commander of the host. The true commander, which is the key of David, the righteous daughter of Zion, gets cast down into the earth and becomes the doormat that he walks upon, which is also why in the end the pillars begins to shake, because her whole purpose of being cast down was to take her kingdom back from him. So his tail drew a third of them and cast them to the earth. The interesting part about the tail is when you look up the constellation of Draco, in the south part of Draco, which is towards the tail end of Draco, if I got it right, is a wall. Anybody who's been here with us, you know why that wall is so important. It's amazing. That's how we identified the key of David. And the daughters that go over the wall as the archers, Baal, shoots at these daughters with their arrows, their lying words, their lying covenant. They are not valiant for the truth in the earth. They aren't. They're valiant for themselves and their lives. So she births up this child, which stood between the woman which was ready to be delivered to deliver a child as soon as it was born. So, though you get, in the first part, you get the male, then towards the end, we get this idea that there's a twofold meaning, a male and a female child. So, yeah, it falls away there. I thought it did. So, and she brought forth a man child. So they want to put a man. But she actually brought forth a woman child. The abomination of desolation is the male child that was brought forth in the beginning, is what they're not telling us. But that's the abomination, a man inside of a man. These male idols everywhere. He's on her throne. She says, though you have set yourself high above on the stars, yet from there thence will I bring thee down. And we're told that Baal is the king of Babylon. Yeah. She says, and though thou hast set thyself amongst the stars, stole her throne, accused her, set himself up as God over our kingdom. She says, from thence will I take thee down. That's the glory of God that was actually cast to the earth, the key of David, when he exalted the harlot spirit. Yeah, let's see if we can find this. Let's see if we can find it. Obadiah 1:4. So what does it say? It says that though thou exalt thyself as the eagle, and though thou set thy nest among the stars, thence will I bring thee down, saith the Lord. She's talking to him, who's in Isaiah 14, who has exalted himself to the throne of the Almighty, yet he is nothing more than a man. And the daughters say, since thou hast come up against him, no axeman has come up against us to cut us down out of the land, right? So we do get it all. So I do have to go now. I hear somebody showing up. So I'm going to call it. Thank you for watching for as long as you have. I appreciate it. We'll pick this up again in the next video. I hope you all have a lovely day, and thanks for watching.